Our presentation is career probationary firefighter and captain die as a result of rapid fire progression in a wind-driven residential structure fire. It was in Texas on April 8, 2010 by Chris May and Jordan Stewart. The summary of incident. Shortly after midnight on Sunday, April 12th, a probationary firefighter and a 50-year-old fire captain were killed. Both were killed when they were shocked by a rapid fire progression in a wind-driven residential structure fire. The high winds rapidly pushed the growing fire through the areas where the interior crews were operating. Rescue operations were suspended after deteriorating conditions. Victims were recovered about 40 minutes after arrival on the scene. The location of the incident was unspecified Texas metropolitan area. Date of incident was April 12, 2009. Two victims, a 30-year-old probationary firefighter and a 50-year-old fire captain. 4,200 square foot residential structure fire. All firefighters were deemed to have received the standard and proper training as required.
Here's kind of like the diagram showing kind of like the origin point of the fire, some of the general schematics of the building itself. This will be referring to the various sides as well throughout the presentation. And likewise too, here's kind of a broader view indicating where the fire apparatuses were parked, as well as some of the specific information as for what happened there on scene. And again, here's a diagram showing actually the wind movement of the fires itself, and of the wind, which did influence the fire itself. And likewise too, there was a bayou nearby, and that's why there's an arrow there.
The structure was noted as a one-story ranch-style residential structure of Type 3 ordinary construction with traditional wood framing, with a brick veneer exterior, and had approximately 4,200 square feet of living space. Most of the windows, except for the sky atrium, were protected by burglar bars. There were several obstacles inherent to the property, such as a masonry wall in the AD corner, chain link fence on B side, as well as a locational limitation in C side. There were high winds with a 17 to 26 mile per hour wind from east and southeast. The temperature was 69 degrees Fahrenheit, 68 to 75 relative humidity.
So here's a brief summary of the events, the overall incident timeline. The main point to take a look here is that the E26, that's the crew with the firefighters that fell on the line of duty, as well as the L26, which would be the crew that would be on the roof and would ultimately come back around later on alongside E36 inside the building itself. And ultimately, after the fire was reported to be too severe, there was an order to evacuate the building. Unfortunately, the two firefighters, the captain and probationary one mentioned earlier, were missing, and a rapid intervention team attempted to enter and pull them out. However, the conditions were too severe, so this was unsuccessful. Here's also another diagram indicating some of the general movements of the firefighters, some of the lines that they were using, as well as where the victims ultimately fell and succumbed to their wounds. And this was also another diagram illustrating how wind affected the fire, as well as the ventilation hole, and just again illustrating the general flow of the fire throughout the structure. So as for the fire behavior itself, the developing fire burned in the void space, in which there was fuel-rich excess pyrrolizite, as well as unburned products from the incomplete combustion. So again, this was near the roof, approximately near the attic space. And the carpet and furniture upholstery in the living and dining rooms, however, were unburned, indicating that flashover did not occur in these areas, However, again, there was evidence that it occurred in the roof void. That was the main place where the severity of the fire was demonstrated. And ultimately, later on, the windows themselves near the left door to entrance became self-vented and fire began to roll out through the windows. So overall, the fire behavior demonstrates that this was particularly severe. And by the time the firefighters arrived, it was already a very complex situation. So ultimately, a summary of the post-incident recommendations is adequate scene size up and training with regards to fire behavior and the effects that the wind can have on these fires itself, which includes better utilization of the equipment such as thermal cameras. Ensure that firefighters understand the influence of ventilation on fire behavior and effectively apply ventilation and fire control tactics in a coordinated manner, and better mayday and survival procedures for dangerous scenes. Recommendation 1. Sizing up the exterior may involve circling around the building as well as the interior size up, which involves checking in and reporting back to incident command. This was specifically said to have been done much later in the fire attack, and even then there were the structures that we mentioned earlier preventing a full scene size up. And again, if they had done the full scene size up, they probably could have seen the seaside windows and the atriums, not to even mention the attic itself, the roof void fire. And again, this should have involved thermal imaging, which was not properly done. Vertical ventilation done just to the left of the front door, where the interior crews were advancing into the structure, actually ended up exposing the fire, burning in the concealed attic space, adding air supply. So again, this ties back to the first point. It's important to have these team scene size ups all together, and as well as interior scene size ups, which could have reported these types of dangers better. And firefighters should be aware with regards to those kind of risks. And better mayday procedures could be better utilized to prevent incidents like this from happening in the future. So victim 1, the probationary firefighter, was actually trained in mayday procedures, but during recovery, the radio was found to have been turned off and set to dispatch channel. Victim 2, the captain, wasn't even found with a radio. So the firefighters should receive more procedures for mayday, which requires proper radio use and survival procedures, as well as scouting for adequate means of egress. And this includes better use of the various tools that they have at their disposal, such as the PASS device. And overall, as a whole, these are our sources. We use the one listed in the instructions as well as the textbook itself. Thank you for listening.